Good morning, everyone. Anthony Thorpe, making another insert. The time is 10:57 a.m. Getting a late start. It's April 9th, 2023. I'm always going to follow up on my pet peeve. The topic of choice is dealing with the whole corruption thing that's going on, and it's universal. But before I do that, I want to wish everybody a happy Easter, and make sure you enjoy everything that Easter was meant to give to all people who wants to see justice and eliminate the crimes of humanity from or against other people, because that's what Christianity and religion generally and a God is all about. It's about fixing or putting things into effect that people don't fall prey to the evil that exists amongst us. I was having a conversation yesterday after I was there doing a video, and I was sitting by the intracoastal, and somebody rode up on a bike. They sat there, they listened, and after that we were engaged in a number of varying topics. But in essence, his quest was to find out why is it that we can't seem to overcome the various stages in history where people actually turn on each other. You know, I said to him, it's embedded, it's part of us, and he suggested that the best solution to that would be war. My thing is, yeah, we always need warriors, but the best solutions to dealing with hostilities and cruel people is not war but peace, and find ways to neutralize them without putting persons in harm's way. When these people start all these wars, let's say for example Putin in Russia, he's starting all these this war, invading one country after the other, and that was his move. That was Hitler's move as well, and Mussolini and Peter the Great or Alexander the Great, all of them involved, the Romans involved in trying to conquer people. And as a result of that, there has been various records of oppression, and we're still facing the thing today. So the monster never disappears. The monster just changes its shape and approaches us in different ways, so that we think it's a new thing. It's no new thing. This brutality against each other and hate for each other has been going on for centuries, for thousands and thousands of years, if not millions of years. Because the notion that man just appeared on the planet 250,000 years ago has been neutralized, because they've found footprints of man walking behind dinosaurs that existed according to their own records 50 million years ago. So something is wrong with our record keeping, and deliberately done, by a lot of people. For example, our history as a people, every person with a tan like me, our concept or origin of where we came from is out of Africa. And in fact, scientists have said every person on the planet came out of Africa. However, if you look at history over the last let's say 15,000 years, 20,000 years, Europeans have tried to rewrite history to suit themselves, but it's backfiring with new evidence, DNA evidence, all of that good scientific stuff that's happening and practiced by a lot of scientists that are Europeans. They're disproving a lot of the so-called accurate historic documentation that they've been teaching us for centuries, that they're facts, when in truth and in fact they're fiction. For example, before 1492, in history books, even in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, it's as if we never existed. We just popped up on the scene in 1492 when Columbus discovered the Caribbean and needed workers to replace the the Tainos and the natives that were wiped out or on the verge of being made extinct. Yet, history has proven to us that not only were we there, but we were relevant to everything that's happening on the earth. We were in the Americas with the Olmecs. And as I've always said to you, don't take my word for it. But the Olmecs, some thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, before Columbus even dreamed of coming on the planet himself, they were in the West, they were in the Americas. There's evidence that a lot of these so-called native tribes were of African descent, or even if they lived here, they were black people. So they can't cover up the truth. There were Vikings that were here before Columbus. But the point I'm making is that they've constantly been trading the truth for fiction, and then teaching us in schools that's what life was or is, when in truth and in fact it's a big lie. And so fast forwarding to today, it's the same thing that's happening. Governments put out statistics and data and narrative that we know are fictitious, because we see what's happening around us, and they put a blind eye. Well, I'm saying a blind eye loosely, because I don't think their eyes have been blinded. They deliberately ignore important events in our history and in society and in our countries and our economies that are relevant to maintaining a civilized society, and avoid going into wars. As I said, with what's happening in Europe now and Ukraine, it's a travesty. What's happening in Syria, it's a travesty. Iran, it's a travesty. Because you have a few people who constantly parade themselves on the planet as if they are liberators for poor people or struggling people or nations, when in truth and in fact they're the greatest oppressors of their own people, our people, because we are genetically linked. If they're on the planet, if they didn't land from outer space somewhere, they're linked to us. They're our cousins, blood relatives. Genetics teaches us that fact. So these leaders, they come and they put a face on society that they're there to help, when in truth and in fact they're our biggest problem. And how do we deal with that? Because that was one of the questions this young man was asking me. How do we deal with it? My suggestion is that we focus on people, ordinary people, work together to elevate ourselves, our consciousness, teach ourselves the truth, the facts, pass it on from generation to generation until our numbers are so great this savage leader or these savage leaders become irrelevant. No longer we buy into this narrative that they're trying to protect our interests by creating wars all over the planet, killing people, destroying civilization, then wiping history clean of those persons. So I think let's focus on ourselves, people with good intentions, and spread that message amongst ourselves, because I think that's what Jesus was in fact doing. If you notice, most of what I've been taught about Jesus' sojourn on the planet, on earth, amongst us, is that he came and he was working with ordinary people to make a change. He didn't hang out with the big guys, the rich guys, the powerful guys. He hung out with poor people, because those are the people you need to convince so that they can, in effect, ignore these criminals who put themselves in places of power and then hurt society. So the whole idea is that we need to also focus on what was happening during the time of Christ, why he came, how he did it, what he was doing. He spent a lot of time amongst the ordinary people. And today, Christianity is the world's most dominant religion. And it's for a reason. Because the 1 and 2, the 12 disciples that he started to work with, traveling amongst the people throughout what is now called the Middle East, which was part of Africa then, or part of the African continent. And it wasn't Africa called then. So those are some of the things we have to remind ourselves. Names that we are using today labeling countries weren't the names that existed then. Europeans coined a lot of those names and wrote their history and incorporated places in their history books with those names, and we've come to adopt it because they've pretty much savagely, a lot of those countries savagely took over our country, our people, and then miseducated us. And so we've adopted not only their language, the names that they put on us, the names that they put on our own places that we own control existed on. And even today, the vast majority of persons around the earth, including people living on the continent of Africa, have no idea what the original name or names of Africa was. And so even Egypt, the whole history of Egypt, there's this big controversy that's still going on, and every day you get on YouTube or online, you see people contesting the issues about Egypt and who were the Egyptians. And they come with all kind of nonsense and logic that Egyptians could never be black people. Yet if you look at all the hieroglyphics and paintings on the walls of pyramids and in burial chambers and the statues, whose face is there? You want to tell me all these non-African people, and I use the term African again loosely, because in those days, that part of the world was called Ethiopia, it was called Kush, it was Nubia, it was Kemet, it was a whole bunch of other names, and I don't know all of them, but I know those from my own research, that we've been miseducated. Will we ever drop the term Africa and adapt our own? Maybe one day when we're conscious enough, but we're not there yet. Because even in terms of places like Ghana, the country of Ghana is not the same Ghana that existed in ancient Africa. And again, using the term Africa loosely. Ghana was in fact not even the name of a country originally. Ghana was the name of the chief or the leader. The Ghana was the leader, and eventually we had Mali, we had ancient Ghana, then we had Mali, we had major empires. Yet throughout history, our own history that's taught to us in West Indian schools, Caribbean schools, Jamaican schools, in the West here in Americas, none of us, unless we did our own independent research or the advent of the internet, would know that black people existed before 1492. Not only did we exist, but black people were all over Europe, all over Asia, all over South Asia, in China, in the Philippines, in the Pacific Ocean. That's who were the native people. So, and saying that to say this, that's the same thing that's happening to us now. We have leaders, who go into power and assert their own belief systems because that's what works for them, even though they know it's a lie. Look at Florida now and the present governor in Florida, DeSantis, I think his name is. That guy is doing everything to wipe black history out of the US or Florida. I don't know how he can do it, because everybody around him, including most of the Spanish persons that he's catering to or pandering to, have African blood. If we use the one drop theory concept that most Europeans adapted, and most of us have come to adapt, once you have one tip of African blood in you, you're African, you're black. And he's trying to suppress an entire continent or peninsula people who have predominantly black ancestry. Most of the so-called Native Americans, a vast majority of them have native so-called black blood. They have our genes running through their veins, and those historical records are there in the face of the Olmecs in South American records. And it's not only blacks that are here, there are so-called Asians that were here before Columbus, but he's trying to wipe out that through legislation. And that's the other thing that's difficult to understand, but it's real. We get people into government, and instead of them going in there and doing the right thing, they tell lies and legislate lies so they become empowered and the rest of the world suffers. And it's the same thing that's happened then, happening now. So nothing is new under the sun. So the corruption that I've been trying to get people to pay attention to is the same corruption. The nature of people, they are corrupt. Our leaders are corrupt, and they've used it throughout history to dominate, domicile, and destroy people's lives by oppressing them. They just domicile the corruption in our nations wherever we occur or people occur. And the vast majority of people, all they want to do is get on with life, improve our lives, improve the standard and quality of our lives. But that's not what's happening. So going back to Jamaica now and connecting the reality of corruption that existed in the past, existed now, and will exist in the future. Jesus Christ was hung on a cross because of corruption. And it has never stopped. It has never stopped. And it's going to continue until the vast majority of us come to a common understanding that corruption is not a thing that we should ignore, blind our eyes to it, or allow people to just carry on and think it's okay to exercise their acts of corruption and brutality against us. Because when people oppress you economically, that's what that is. It's no different from when they hold you down and chain you in a building and use you to build their economy under the slave system, which is the plantation system, which was adapted. And I've always maintained that slavery was just another economic system that they were using to oppress and exploit people. And from slavery we went into serfdom, where people worked and sold the products of their labor, and the master, the colonialist or the plantation owner would come in and collect most of the money from them. In fact, collecting rent, collecting for food, collecting for medicine, out of whatever they'd sell the products for, the goods they'd serve, that they'd produce, and then they end up owing the plantation owner in most cases. So it was just slavery in another form. Today it's the same thing. People work. They spend their lives working hard, saving, putting a home over their heads or over their families. But we have leaders in place that makes society and the country and the economy is so difficult to maneuver that at the end of the day, most people end up in debt, and that means they die leaving a burden on the rest of their relatives and family and sometimes friends. And it's the same thing that happened in the past. So regardless of what's happening or the time it's happening in, the same solution exists. We must fight corruption. The same corrupt judges that we have now were the same corrupt judges that existed in the past. Some of them used the church when the church was heavily into administering so-called truths and rights and justices. But it's the same thing now. Except for today, the church is amongst the most quiet among society's organizations and organizations that were developed to help harmonize society. And yet we hardly hear anything from the church. Instead, we have politicians who have taken that position of coming up with policies and programs that oppress people. They overtax people. People work hard. In France, people are nearing retirement age. They suddenly up the age so people will die before they retire, or when they retire they don't collect half the pension that is due to them, and this is money they paid into the system. It's their money, and yet that's what's happening. It's no different in Jamaica. I heard persons blogging the other day, and they were talking about a new policy that the government was adapting for workers in terms and giving them pensions, and this was pertaining directly to Mr. Samuda, I think, Carl Samuda, the Labour Minister. Uh, don't hold me to all of that. I'm not 100% sure, and I don't have a lot of time wasting my brain power and energy trying to remember all of those things, because as far as I'm concerned, those are the persons we need to address. But unless we put ourselves in a financially strong position, we won't be able to address it. So this blogger was there, and he was talking about the oppression that workers are now facing, where if you want to get a pension, then you have to give up the years of service or labor that you put in before this policy is adopted. And in fact, a lot of these so-called workers are being given a new contract to say this is a starting point, and you are not going to be able to claim the benefits you had in the past. If you had grosses that you wanted resolved, you won't be able to. You have to forget them, pretty much write them off. And so in short, you're starting a new cycle here, and you're starting on ground zero. And a lot of them are being put on probation, which means they have lost everything. And starting over, at what point, and what will they get for pension? Is it worth it? But that's what politicians do. And politicians do that not in the interest of the nation, but in the interest of big industry, money industry. People are there empowering themselves financially at the cost of other people. And I'm saying all of this and reminding you, it's the same thing that happened in Jesus' time, before Jesus, way before you had so-called kingdoms that we recognize throughout Africa, UK, the Europe, Asia, you name it. Before all of these dominant kingdoms rose, the same thing was happening. People who are in charge, or put themselves in charge, or put in charge by the people, turn around and exploit the very people, empower themselves and their friends, and at the end of the day, the only persons that benefit are the people in power. And the reality is, we won't be able to overcome that unless we change our whole socialization policies and educational policies that we have of misinforming people, giving them the impression that they don't have a right to be on the planet. They're doing these people a favor, and therefore whatever happens, accept it or else. It's Good Friday. Sorry, Good Friday does pass. Today is Easter Sunday. A lot of people are in church and getting together with family. I'm going to be doing that hopefully in another couple of hours, and looking forward to it, because this is a time when we should also reflect on the things that's going on around us, and draw a line in the sand as to say, where am I going with my life? Where am I going with my responsibilities as it relates to humanity? Because as I've said, and we continue to say, every person that walks on this planet has an effect on our development as a species and as a people. And though they mightn't realize how valuable their contributions are, regardless of how tiny it is, it's still a value that we need to recognize, that we have a responsibility to help make a difference. Hence, even though I should be retired on some beach someplace, enjoying family, just enjoying the breeze. It's very cool today. It's overcast, but it's still a nice day. People are still up and down, catching fishes with their family, you name it. But that's what we should be doing at my age. However, there are a lot of people, and thank God I'm in a good position in that I don't have to be out there like a lot of people. Because I see a lot of people out there who are older than I am, approaching my age, or are around the same age, and they're out there struggling alongside the young because they're in a really bad position economically and financially, because they were either not conscious of how to empower themselves and protect their assets. They either fell prey to the concept that work hard, work long, work hard, work smart, and you'll be successful, or they've just been exploited. Whichever or whatever case it is, there are millions of people out there who are in desperate positions. And it's the same thing with a lot of young people. A lot of young people out there desperate, hopeless, don't have no direction, don't know where they're going, don't know how to get there. And that's happening not only in Jamaica but all over the world. And as a result of that, typically we end up with major issues, crime, violence, and all kind of political upheavals. We can't stop all of that by just playing a role in helping to clean society. But when you sit there and you ignore everything that's happening around you in Jamaica or elsewhere, and if you're Jamaican and you're not in Jamaica, it doesn't stop you from making a difference where you live, because it's important. You see, every Jamaican that's abroad and asserts themselves and makes a powerful statement to the rest of the world that we are part of society and we're not afraid to advance ourselves and our people, is sending a major message psychologically to even the Jamaicans abroad, the Jamaicans at home, the Jamaicans to come. That's why we celebrate Heroes Day and give people awards and meritorious, what you call it now, rewards. You give them that because you want people to recognize that these people made a contribution, and it's important in order to encourage other people to follow a similar path. And so I'm reaching out to everybody again, as I've always done. Step up. Stop lagging behind. Stop allowing other people to do the wrong thing and getting away with it. Stop going to church and allow pastors to manipulate you or fool you up with you just contributing money to a church or a pastor that does nothing to help you, to help society, because they are themselves leeches on society and help to reinforce the lots of social problems we have. Because all they do, they go to church, they preach, they collect your money, your tithes as you call it, and then they do nothing for you, nothing for society. They keep quiet, they're friendly with the politicians, and to keep themselves in their own secure position, then they shut their mouth. That's not what they were there for. That's not what the church was there for or is there for. But that's what's happening. But you have to assert yourself when you go to church. I'm not saying drop out of church. When you go to church, put those persons who are leading the church, your pastors, on spot. Ask them what they're doing. Why are you so silent in face of all this corruption that's going on? Why are you so silent in face of all this crime that's going on? When you know who's doing it, why are you not putting programs in place to protect people when they go to work? Why are you not playing a role to say to government, exploiting people, and when they get near to retirement, you just change the law and think it's okay, when the government officials are way in a better position because they made sure that they have the money put away, they're going to be getting super pensions. But, and you know how they are in government, especially leadership, they limit these persons to a two terms mostly. They have those really evil people who go in there and change it to make themselves lifetime politicians or leaders. But let's see how slick these people are. Regardless of their age, for example, you do a 2-term in the position of your leadership, president, prime minister, but you're given a pension for the rest of your life, which is way above what ordinary people are getting. And regardless of what happens, they don't tell us that we have to go cut your money or we can't pay you until you get to 65. You're getting paid and you're getting security and all kind of perks, but then you selfishly sit there and allow people to be exploited. But it's our fault. Our fault. Nobody else's. So I don't go around just blaming politicians. I said they're part of the problem, but the biggest part of the problem are the people, ordinary people themselves, who do a lot of complaining and take no action to protect themselves, protect us as a collective. So I'm asking you again, step up, play a role. Don't sit around and allow all this corruption to go on. When you follow the Jamaican media or what's out there, not even the media so much, but online, bloggers are getting information out there. When you do follow it, it's shocking the level of corruption that exists. We have a campaign going on against the corruption in the courts and the reform that must take place. And it will take place. Enough people are going to get to the point where we can't deal with this nonsense anymore. We can't sit there and allow corrupt people to sit on a bench and determine our future and our lives because they're catering or pandering to their friends. We can't allow it. It has to stop, and it will stop. However, over the last couple of weeks, I've seen so many corrupt activity going on, and it's in the media, and yet people just listen, and nobody's taking up a flyer, a pen, and I mean, the bloggers do it. I'm not talking about bloggers. I'm talking about people who are listening to these videos, who are watching these videos, hearing all this narrative going on, and yet all they say is, yeah, it's bad, these people are that, these people are that, but what are you truly doing? So find a way to be effective and be a part of humanity, be a part of society you exist in. And I'm not talking about going out there and creating any kind of violent activity. That's the worst thing we could do in terms of advancing ourselves. The best thing we can do to advance ourselves is to empower ourselves economically. The best way to do that, and the fastest way to do that, and the strongest way to do that is to network with other people who have a common interest, a common goal to be successful. And that's why I have been reaching out to people over the last couple of days and saying that with what's happening in terms of this whole thing where we allow these politicians to get away with literally murder, the oppression and all of that we face, and we're not doing anything about it, then we're leading to our own demise. The last couple of tapes I did, or videos we did, we focus on things that happen every day. People see it happening every day, and we just ignore it completely. So again, thanks for listening. Please share and subscribe. Everything I'm saying, take from it what little you can or as much as you can, so that you can step up and be part of the solutions. The matter of this whole housing trust and the ruling from the appeals court, which has been the focus of my videos over the last couple of days on my channel, is saying to you that it's the same corruption that we need to fight and fix that resulted in this. And a lot of people still don't understand the kind of danger that's ongoing or going on now because of this ruling. Your entire economy could be wiped out. Your banks that you have your money in could be wiped out. The developers that are putting money into Jamaica may just change their minds and say, to heck with this nonsense, and move to someplace else. There are so many opportunities around the planet, in Africa, in America, in Canada, throughout the Caribbean, South America, all over the world. There are opportunities where developers can go and take the money they're putting in Jamaica and spend elsewhere. And why should people be put through all of this unnecessary thing because of corrupt people or ignorant people or people who have such an inflated ego that they believe that they have a right to screw with people's lives? I'm talking about judges, and I'm going to talk about them. I'm not going to be backing down because I have a right to make those statements, because I'm not just guessing. This isn't just speculation. This isn't just conjecture. This is actual stuff I'm experiencing and I'm going through. And as I said yesterday, I heard again another blogger, and he was talking about a similar case with another person. And I've heard so many people talking about events where people go in front of the Jamaica courts and they make laws that cheat people out of their property, even though the Constitution said their properties are protected. Now there's one instance now where this person is being exploited by a major politician in the current administration's family. I don't know if she's directly involved, but the implication is here a person that deals with justice and all of that and has headed up the Attorney General's office. Her immediate family, her sisters, are involved in defrauding people of their property. And if it's not defrauding them, come out and put the statements out there and clarify it to the world that there is a mistake being made here. Our family, our family members did not engage in any kind of fraud or defrauding this person, and this is what happened, and explain the business transaction that took place. Because like I've said to you when this Usain Bolt thing started, I'm not going to be condemning anybody about the events of investing, because when you invest you also have the possibility of losing everything. And I didn't know the investment relationship. However, since then it's been pointed out and discovered and factually documented that there was a lot of unkosher things going on, a lot of illegal stuff going on, and it's still going on, believe it or not. A lot of it is still covered up. But the point I'm making is we can't sit around and allow judges to keep messing up people's lives and thinking it's okay because there are no consequences to their action. When we bust a judge robbing people of their property, there must be penalties. They must do jail time. You can't just let them slide, because the message we're sending to society is that these are untouchable. All I have to do is become a judge and commit all kind of crimes against people, take their property, rob them, cheat them, treat them like people are nothing but dirt to be stepped on, and then move on and think it's okay. Next day you're in somebody else's matter doing the same thing. I've documented and pointed out to people that this is what goes on. This is factual. I'm not guessing this. You can go there, as I said, the evidence is there. You can go to any matters that I have and find the evidence. It's documented. I've put it on Amazon. So anybody wants to go there and just dial up the fence that broke the camel's back and purchase the documents that are there. I put it there so people are truly interested and want to document this, want to do a documentary on what's going on. It's there for them to access, acquire it, use it. You know, I've expressed myself as a person of African descent that I'm so fed up with what's going on in a small book of prose, and that's called For White Eyes Only. It's also on Amazon. And those are things that express who I am and why we are in the position that we are in prose, in verses. And I'm sure a lot of people have the same experiences, but we're not doing anything. Document your experience, write it down, expose it. You're not a judge doing this, become a whistleblower. Expose them for the crimes against humanity and against people and the Jamaican people. Because when they cheat people out of their assets, it's not only affecting the people that cheat, especially when they're senior citizens. Because this particular individual is 80-something years old, 85, the blogger stated. I don't know if it's just alleged or not, but regardless of whether it was 25, 65, 45, 55, 75, 95, 105, 85, it doesn't matter. We can't have judges cheating people out of what's theirs or what they want to pass on to their future generations to make their lives better. Again, today's a day which most people, or main conscious people, should reflect what happened to Christ, the significance of it. It's not just about eating bun and cheese or fried fish and bami. And I could have some of that now. But anyway, it's not just about that. We need to step up, stand up, and be a part of society. Thanks for listening. Subscribe. You know, people go to the channel, they listen to the videos. However, the most important thing that you should be doing is not only listening, which is the most important, but the other most important, and there are a number of most important things that I'm encouraging you to do, is just click the subscribe button. It makes a difference, because if I can develop this channel, and the basic fundamental strategy of the channel is to expose corruption. And though I'm focused on Jamaica now, if you apply everything I'm saying to other territories, so I'm inviting other Caribbean islands, other nations, people living in other countries where corruption is going on. Let's connect, let's reach out. As I've said, bringing the world to a peaceful solution for everybody is meaning everybody who is conscious must work together for that common good, empowering each other, elevating us to a standard of living that's acceptable, that people have living wages, that they can live, they can feed their family. We don't have to be struggling and going to wars because some people think they have the power to destroy lives, to empower themselves, like what's happening in Ukraine. So again, it's Easter. Please subscribe, share the video. It's important. I don't have forever on the planet, and I'm hoping that other people will hear this message, will understand the reason for the message, and share it and pick up the mantle. I just don't want to be the only one to be out there talking, and I'm pretty sure I'm not. But we just don't want to be talking. We want to put things in place that can make that difference. And networking and working together will make the difference. Put your comments, your suggestions, your recommendations. Identify cases that's going on that you are aware of, that we can look into and make commentary on, so other people are in those positions can connect. If you have a relative that's being ripped off and they're in the courts, let us know. Let the world know. Share the experience. You don't have to put their names out there. Just share the experience. Identify what's happening so other people know it's not just what happened to me. It's not just what happened to this 85-year-old person who these relatives of this minister of government is involved in ripping off. There were stories about the Speaker of the House involved in some nefarious activity with land. Is she involved? We don't know, but when we get those things out there, the Speaker must step up and come out and explain to the people that I can't just ignore this, and they shouldn't be allowed to just ignore what's going on. When things like that happen, they should come out and tell people, I've been doing this and it's wrong. I've been doing this, I've been doing it correctly and legally, so people know this person is legit. So thank you again. Enjoy your bun and cheese, enjoy your fish, but remember that you need to play a role. Share this video. Hit the subscribe button. Let's grow this channel, because as I've said to you, my objective is not just to be out here talking. The objective is to identify with people, grow this channel, grow the support, then force changes within the judiciary, changes within the political arena, so that they are held accountable. And we can do that. We don't have to get politicians to straighten out politicians. That's our biggest mistake. We don't have to get judges or law enforcement to straighten out the courts. We don't have to get law enforcement to straighten out law enforcement. That's the job of the people. The people are to step up and make sure that they conform to what society wants. Thank you. Have a great Sunday, a great Easter.